The music pulsed like a heartbeat, vibrating through my chest as I stood in the corner of the crowded Brooklyn loft. Bodies swayed, laughter clashed with the bass, and the air smelled of spilled beer and ambition. I was 25, out of place, clutching a warm drink, wondering why I'd let my roommate drag me to this party, until she walked in. Her name was Lila, and she was a storm in a sundress. Blonde waves cascaded over her shoulders, and her green eyes scanned the room like she was searching for something, or someone. I didn't know her, but the way she moved, confident yet unguarded, made my breath catch. I was Alex, the quiet artist who preferred sketchbooks to small talk, and yet, something about her made me want to step out of the shadows. The loft belonged to some trust fund kid named Ethan, a friend of a friend who threw parties to feel alive. It was 2019 and New York City was electric, a place where dreams and heartbreak collided nightly. I'd moved here from a small Ohio town, chasing a life bigger than the one I'd left behind. Back home I'd hidden who I was, a lesbian with dreams too loud for whispers, but here I was still figuring out how to be free. Lila, though, seemed to embody freedom. She laughed with strangers, her voice cutting through the noise like a melody. I watched her from across the room, sketching her in my mind. The curve of her jaw, the way her dress clung to her hips, the spark in her eyes. "Stop staring, Alex," my roommate Jamie teased, nudging me. "Go talk to her before you combust." "I'm not staring," I lied, my cheeks burning. Jamie, a non-binary DJ with a knack for calling me out, just smirked. They knew I'd been single since a messy breakup last year, too scared to dive back into love. But Lila, she was different. I could feel it. I took a sip of my drink, steeling myself. The party was a blur of hipsters and wannabe influencers, but Lila stood out, like a painting in a room full of sketches. She was talking to a group near the open window, the city lights framing her like a halo. I wanted to know her story, her dreams, her fears. I wanted to know why she made my heart race when I hadn't even said hello. I pushed through the crowd, my boots sticking to the beer-slicked floor. As I got closer, Lila's eyes met mine. It wasn't a glance, it was a collision. Her lips curved into a small, curious smile, and I felt like the room had shrunk to just us. "Hey," she said, her voice warm like she'd been waiting for me. "Hey," I managed, my throat dry despite the drink in my hand. "I'm Alex." "Lila," she replied, tilting her head. "You don't look like you belong here." I laughed, surprised by her bluntness. "Is it that obvious?" "Yeah, but it's cute," she said, her smile widening. "You've got this quiet intensity, like you're hiding a masterpiece under that jacket." My heart stuttered. Was she flirting? Or was she just one of those effortlessly charming people who made everyone feel special? Either way, I was hooked. We talked, the party fading into background noise. She was 26, a writer who just moved to Brooklyn from Seattle. She loved poetry, late-night walks, and coffee shops that didn't care if you lingered for hours. I told her about my art, how I painted emotions I couldn't say out loud. We clicked like two puzzle pieces from different boxes that somehow fit. Hours passed, but it felt like minutes. The party was winding down, empty cups littering the floor, when Lila grabbed my hand. "Come with me," she whispered, her eyes bright with mischief. "Where?" I asked, but I was already following her. "Somewhere quieter," she said, leading me to the fire escape. We climbed out, the city sprawling below us, a canvas of lights and shadows. The air was cool and she sat close, her shoulder brushing mine. "Why'd you come tonight?" she asked, her voice softer now. "I didn't want to," I admitted. "But I'm glad I did." She looked at me, her gaze steady. "Me too." The moment hung between us, fragile and electric. I wanted to kiss her to close the gap between us, but fear held me back. What if I was reading this wrong? What if she was just being friendly? But then she leaned in, her breath warm against my lips, and the world stopped. Her kiss was soft at first, tentative like she was testing the waters. Then it deepened, urgent and hungry, and I kissed her back, my hands finding her waist. The city hummed below, but all I could hear was my heartbeat. When we pulled apart, she laughed, a little breathless. "I didn't expect that," she said. Neither did I replied, grinning like an idiot. We stayed on the fire escape, talking until the sky started to lighten. She told me about her ex, a woman who'd broken her heart in Seattle, and I shared my own scars, how my first love had called me a phase, how I'd spent years proving her wrong. We were strangers, but it felt like we'd known each other forever. As dawn crept in, Lila shivered and I offered her my jacket. Come back to my place, I said, the words slipping out before I could overthink them. It's warmer. She raised an eyebrow, playful. You sure that's all you're offering? I blushed but didn't back down. Maybe not. She laughed, grabbing my hand. Lead the way, Alex. We left the party behind, the city waking up around us. My apartment was a short walk, a cramped studio with paint-splattered walls and too many books. I didn't know what would happen next, but with Lila's hand in mine, I felt braver than I ever had. As we stepped inside, the door clicking shut, I realized this was just the beginning. My studio apartment felt smaller with Lila in it, her presence filling the space like light through a cracked window. The morning sun filtered through my thrift store curtains, casting soft patterns on her face as she stood by my cluttered desk, tracing her fingers over a half-finished canvas. This is you, she said, her voice quiet but certain, like she'd already seen the parts of me I kept hidden. I laughed nervously, kicking off my boots. It's just a mess of colors. No, she insisted, turning to me. It's raw. Like you. Her words hit me harder than they should have. I wasn't used to being seen not like this. Back in Ohio, I'd been the girl who kept her head down, who painted in secret and loved in silence. Even in New York, I hid behind my art, letting it speak the truths I couldn't. But Lila, with her sharp eyes and fearless smile, was unraveling me. Coffee, I offered, needing something to do with my hands. Only if it's terrible, she teased, flopping onto my worn couch. I bet you're one of those artists who lives on instant coffee and vibes. Guilty, I said, grinning as I filled the kettle. The normalcy of the moment, making coffee while Lila sprawled across my couch, felt surreal after the intensity of the night. We'd kissed on the fire escape, her lips electric against mine, and now she was here in my space like she belonged. As the kettle hissed, I stole glances at her. She was flipping through one of my sketchbooks, her fingers careful not to smudge the pages. These are incredible, Alex, she said. Why aren't you showing them off somewhere? I shrugged, pouring coffee into mismatched mugs. Galleries aren't exactly knocking down my door. They should be, she said, her tone fierce. You're too good to stay hidden. I handed her a mug, our fingers brushing, and sat beside her. The couch was small, our knees touching, and the air between us crackled. What about you? I asked. What's your writing like? She sipped her coffee, wincing at the taste. Told you it'd be terrible, I said, and she laughed, the sound bright and unguarded. My writing's messy, she admitted. I write poems about love, loss, all the big feelings. But lately I've been stuck. My ex, she kind of broke my pen, you know? I nodded, understanding too well. My ex, Sarah, had left me doubting everything. My art, my worth, my ability to love without getting hurt. What happened? I asked, cautious but curious. Lila stared into her mug, her smile fading. Her name was Mia. We were together for 2 years in Seattle. I thought she was my forever, but she didn't want to be out. She kept me a secret like I was something to be ashamed of. When I pushed her to be honest, she left. Her voice cracked and I wanted to reach for her, to erase the pain in her eyes. I'm sorry, I said instead, my own memories stinging. Mine, Sarah, she called me a phase. Said I'd grow out of it. Like my love was just a detour. Lila's eyes met mine, soft with understanding. That's bullshit. You're not a phase. You're a whole damn universe. My breath caught. No one had ever said anything like that to me. Before I could respond, she set her mug down and leaned closer, her hand resting on my knee. Last night, she said. When I saw you across the room, I felt something. Like I was supposed to meet you. Me too. I whispered, my heart pounding. She kissed me again, slower this time, her lips tasting of bad coffee and possibility. My hands found her hair, soft and tangled, and I pulled her closer, the world fading away. We ended up in my bed not because of lust, though that was there, but because it felt right, like we were two lost pieces finding each other. We didn't sleep together, not like that. We lay there, fully clothed, talking until our voices grew hoarse. She told me about her childhood in a small Washington town, how she'd known she was a lesbian since she was 12, but didn't come out until college. I shared stories of sneaking into my high school's art room to paint, of my mom's quiet acceptance and my dad's silence. We laughed, we cried, and somewhere in those hours I felt myself falling. But morning brought reality. Lila had to leave. She had a freelance writing gig to finish. "Can I see you again?" she asked, pulling on her shoes. "Only if you survive my coffee," I joked, but my chest ached at the thought of her leaving. She grinned, scribbling her number on a napkin. "Text me, Alex. I mean it." After she left, I sat on my couch, staring at the napkin like it was a treasure map. I wanted to believe this was real, but doubt crept in. What if she was just passing through my life? What if I wasn't enough? I texted her that night, my fingers trembling. "Hey, it's Alex. Still thinking about you." Her reply came fast. "Good. Because I'm not done with you yet." We started texting constantly, then meeting up, coffee shops, bookstores, late-night walks through Brooklyn. Each moment with her felt like a brushstroke on a canvas, vivid and alive. But there was a shadow in her eyes sometimes, a hesitation I couldn't place. I didn't push, but I wondered. Was she holding back because of her ex? Or was it something else? One night, a week later, we were at a dive bar, sharing a plate of fries. She was telling me about a poem she'd written. Her hands animated when her phone buzzed. Her face changed, pale, tense, as she glanced at the screen. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said quickly, too quickly. "Just an old friend." But I saw the name before she turned her phone over, Mia. My stomach twisted. Was her ex back in the picture? And if she was, would Lila choose her over me? The name on Lila's phone, Mia, hung in my mind like a storm cloud. We sat in that dive bar, the neon lights casting red and blue shadows across her face, but her smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. I wanted to ask about the text, to know if her ex was still a ghost in her life, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I dipped a fry in ketchup and changed the subject. "So this poem you're writing," I said, forcing a grin. "Is it going to win a Pulitzer or just make me cry?" Lila laughed, but it was hollow. "Maybe both," she said, tucking her phone into her bag. "It's about starting over. Finding something real after everything." Her words felt like a promise, but Mia's name was a crack in the foundation we were building. I'd been hurt before. Sarah's dismissal had left scars, and I couldn't shake the fear that Lila might slip away too. Still, I leaned into her, letting the warmth of her shoulder against mine anchor me. Over the next few weeks, we grew closer. Lila came to my art studio, a shared space in Bushwick where I painted alongside other broke creatives. She sat on a stool watching me mix colors, her presence steadying my shaking hands. "You're fearless with a brush," she said once, her voice soft with awe. "Why aren't you like that with people?" I paused, paint dripping onto the floor. "I'm trying," I said. "With you." She smiled, but that shadow was there again, fleeting but unmistakable. I wanted to believe it was just her past, not our present, but doubt gnawed at me. We spent nights together, cooking cheap pasta in my tiny kitchen, kissing until we were breathless, but she never stayed till morning. She always had an excuse, a deadline, an early meeting, and I didn't push. I was too scared of breaking whatever we had. One evening we walked along the East River, the Manhattan skyline glittering across the water. The air was crisp, October wrapping the city in a chill. Lila was quieter than usual, her hands stuffed in her coat pockets. "You okay?" I asked, stopping to face her. She hesitated, then nodded. "Just thinking about home. Seattle. My family. You miss them?" "Sometimes," she said. "My mom's great, but my dad, he doesn't get it. Me being gay. He thinks it's a choice, like I woke up one day and decided to disappoint him." I reached for her hand, squeezing it. "My dad's the same. He didn't kick me out or anything, but he stopped talking to me after I came out. Like I was a stranger. Lila's eyes softened. How do you deal with it? I paint, I said simply. It's the only way I know how to scream without making a sound. She pulled me into a hug, her arms tight around me. You're incredible, Alex, she whispered. Don't ever let anyone make you feel less. Her words warmed me, but the moment was fleeting. Her phone buzzed again and she stiffened, pulling away to check it. I caught a glimpse of Mia again. My heart sank. Lila, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Is there something you're not telling me? She looked at me, her eyes wide like a deer caught in headlights. It's nothing, she said. Just she's been texting. Trying to reconnect. Reconnect. The word tasted bitter. What does that mean? She's back in New York, Lila admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. She wants to meet up. Talk. My chest tightened. And what do you want? I don't know, she said, and the honesty in her voice hurt more than a lie would have. I loved her, Alex. But it's over. I need to figure out what she wants. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Okay. But don't ghost me, Lila. If you're choosing her, just tell me. I'm not choosing anyone, she said quickly, grabbing my hands. I'm here with you. I want this us. But as we walked back to my apartment, her hand in mine, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was competing with a ghost. The next day, I threw myself into my art, painting with a fury I hadn't felt in months. The canvas was a storm of reds and blacks, emotions I couldn't name. Jamie, my roommate, found me in the studio, paint smudged on my face. You look like you're fighting a war, they said, leaning against the doorframe. Maybe I am, I muttered. They raised an eyebrow. Lila. I sighed, setting down my brush. Her ex is back. And I don't know. She says she wants me, but she's not letting go of her past. Jamie sat beside me, their voice gentle. You can't make her choose, Alex. But you can choose yourself. Don't lose who you are, waiting for her to figure it out. Their words stuck with me, but they didn't ease the ache. I wanted Lila, more than I'd wanted anyone, but I couldn't shake the fear that I was a placeholder, a rebound before she ran back to Mia. That night, Lila came over, her eyes tired but warm. We didn't talk about Mia. Instead, we watched a cheesy rom-com, her head on my shoulder, and for a moment everything felt right. But as she fell asleep in my arms, her phone lit up on the coffee table. Another text from Mia. I didn't read it. I didn't need to. The truth was clear. Lila's heart was a battlefield and I wasn't sure I'd win. Lila's phone glowed in the dark. Mia's name, a silent intruder in my apartment. I stared at it, my heart pounding, but I didn't touch it. Instead, I pulled a blanket over Lila, her breathing soft and steady as she slept on my couch. I wanted to trust her, to believe she meant it when she said she wanted us, but the weight of her past was suffocating me. The next morning, she woke with a sleepy smile, her hair a mess of golden curls. You let me crash here, she said, stretching. You're too good to me, Alex. I forced a smile, handing her a mug of coffee. You looked like you needed it. We didn't talk about the text. I couldn't bring myself to ask, and she didn't offer. Instead, we spent the day together, wandering through Prospect Park, the autumn leaves crunching under our feet. She talked about her latest poem, about how the city inspired her, and I listened, painting her words in my mind. But every laugh, every touch felt fragile, like it could shatter if I looked too closely. That evening, she suggested we go to an open mic night at a queer bar in Williamsburg. You should read something, she said, her eyes bright. Or maybe show your art? I laughed, shaking my head. I don't perform. I just paint. Come on, she pressed, nudging me. You're hiding again. Let people see you. Her words echoed what she'd said in my studio, and they stung because they were true. I was hiding not just my art but my heart. I was falling for her hard, but the fear of losing her kept me guarded. At the bar, the air was thick with cigarette smoke and hope. Lila read a poem, her voice steady and raw, weaving images of rain-soaked streets and unspoken love. The crowd snapped their fingers and I clapped louder than anyone, my chest swelling with pride. She was brilliant and she was mine, at least for now. After her reading, we sat in a corner booth, sharing a beer. "Your turn," she said, grinning. "Show me one of your sketches." I hesitated, then pulled out my phone, scrolling to a photo of a painting I'd done last week. A woman's silhouette against a city skyline, her edges blurred like she was dissolving into the night. Lila's eyes widened. "Alex, it's me, isn't it?" I blushed. "Maybe." She leaned closer, her hand on my arm. "You see me. Really see me. No one's ever done that before." Her words were a lifeline, but before I could respond, her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, her face tightening, and I knew it was Mia. "Lila," I said, my voice low. "You need to tell me what's going on." She sighed, setting her phone face down. "She's been texting me. A lot. She says she's sorry, that she wants to make things right." "And what do you want?" I asked, my heart in my throat. "I don't know," she said, her voice breaking. "I loved her for so long, Alex. But then I met you and it's different. It's better. But I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Of hurting you," she whispered. "Of messing this up. You're too good, Alex. I don't deserve you." I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I kissed her, hard and desperate, trying to pour everything I felt into that moment. She kissed me back, her hands clutching my jacket, and for a second I thought we could outrun her past. But the next day she was distant. She canceled our plans, saying she needed time to think. I didn't push, but the silence was deafening. I threw myself into my art, painting until my hands ached, but every stroke was her eyes, her smile, her shadow. A week later, Jamie dragged me to another party, hoping to pull me out of my spiral. I went, but my heart wasn't in it. The loft was packed, the music too loud, and I was about to leave when I saw her, Lila, across the room, talking to a woman with dark hair and sharp cheekbones. "Mia." My stomach dropped. They were standing close, too close, and Lila's face was unreadable. I wanted to run, to disappear, but my feet carried me toward them. "Alex," Lila said, her eyes widening as I approached. "I didn't know you'd be here." "Clearly," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. I looked at Mia, who was watching me with cool, assessing eyes. She was beautiful in a polished, untouchable way, and I hated her instantly. "This is Mia," Lila said, her voice strained. "Mia, this is Alex." "Nice to meet you," Mia said, her tone clipped. She extended a hand, but I didn't take it. "I need to talk to you," I said to Lila, ignoring Mia. She nodded, following me to a quiet corner. "I'm sorry," she started, but I cut her off. "Are you back with her?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Because if you are, just tell me. Don't string me along." "I'm not," she said, her eyes pleading. I told her it's over. But she's persistent. And I owe her a conversation. "You don't owe her anything," I snapped. "You owe yourself. And maybe me, if you meant any of what you said." "I did," she said, tears in her eyes. "I do. I need time, Alex." I nodded, my throat tight. "Take it. But don't expect me to wait forever." I walked away, my heart breaking with every step. I didn't look back. The weeks without Lila were a blur of gray. I painted obsessively, my studio a chaos of canvases, each one a scream I couldn't voice. Her absence was a physical ache, like a bruise I kept pressing. I told her to take her time, but every day without a text, a call, felt like a rejection. Jamie tried to keep me grounded. "You're enough, Alex," they said one night, handing me a beer as we sat on our fire escape. "With or without her." "I know," I lied, staring at the city lights. But I didn't feel enough. I felt like a sketch, half finished, waiting for her to fill in the lines. I avoided the places we'd gone together, the coffee shop on Bedford, the bookstore with the creaky floors. But New York was small in its own way, and I couldn't escape her. One evening I saw her at a gallery opening in Chelsea, her blonde hair catching the light as she laughed with a group of artists. She didn't see me, and I didn't approach her. I left, my heart heavy, wondering if she'd chosen Mia. But then late one night my phone lit up. A text from Lila. "Can we talk? I miss you. My heart leapt, but I didn't reply right away. I wanted to, but I needed to protect myself. I waited until morning, then texted back. Meet me at the studio. 7 p.m. When she arrived, she looked tired, her eyes rimmed with red. I'm sorry, she said, standing in the doorway. I've been a mess. Talk to me, I said, setting down my paintbrush. What's going on? She stepped inside, her hands twisting together. I met with Mia. She wanted to get back together, said she'd changed. But it wasn't real. She wanted the idea of me, not the reality. I told her no. Relief flooded me, but it was tempered by caution. And what about us? She looked at me, her eyes steady. I want you, Alex. I've wanted you since that first night. But I was scared of how fast this happened, of how much I feel for you. I didn't want to hurt you by rushing in before I was ready. I crossed my arms, needing to hear more. And now I'm ready, she said, stepping closer. If you'll still have me. I wanted to say yes, to pull her into my arms, but I hesitated. You hurt me, Lila. You pulled away, and I didn't know if you'd come back. I know, she said, her voice breaking. And I'm so sorry. I was trying to protect you, but I messed up. I'm here now. I choose you. Her words cracked something open in me. I stepped forward, cupping her face, and kissed her. It was slow, tentative, but it grew into something fierce, like we were making up for lost time. When we pulled apart, she was crying, and so was I. I'm scared too, I admitted. But I want this. I want us. We spent the night in the studio, not painting or writing, but talking, rebuilding the trust we'd nearly lost. She told me about her fears, of loving too deeply, of losing herself again. I told her about mine, of being left, of not being enough. We laid our vulnerabilities bare, and it felt like a beginning, not an end. The next few weeks were different. Lila was present, fully there, no shadows in her eyes. We went to more open mic nights, her reading poetry while I sketched in the crowd. She started submitting her work to journals, and I entered a painting in a local art show. We were building something, not just together but individually, finding our voices, our courage. But life wasn't a fairy tale. One night, as we lay in my bed, her head on my chest, she got a call. She silenced it, but I saw the name Mia. Again. She won't stop, Lila said, her voice tight. She keeps calling, texting, showing up at places she knows I'll be. Anger flared in me. You need to tell her to back off. For good. I have, she said, sitting up. But she's not listening. I don't know what to do. Then we'll figure it out together, I said, taking her hand. She doesn't get to ruin this. Lila nodded, but I could see the fear in her eyes. Mia wasn't just an ex. She was a shadow we couldn't shake. And as much as I wanted to believe we were stronger than her pull, I knew we were about to face a test we might not pass. Mia's persistence was a dark current running through our days. Lila blocked her number, but Mia found ways to reach her. Emails, social media, even showing up at the coffee shop where Lila wrote. It wasn't just harassment. It was obsession, and it was tearing at the edges of what we'd built. One chilly November evening, Lila and I were at my apartment, cooking dinner together. The smell of garlic and tomatoes filled the air, and we were laughing, stealing kisses between stirs of the sauce. For a moment it felt like we could keep the world at bay. Then the doorbell rang. Lila froze, her spatula hovering over the pan. "Were you expecting someone?" she asked. "No," I said, my stomach sinking. I went to the intercom and buzzed. "Who is it?" "It's Mia," came the reply, her voice sharp through the static. "I need to talk to Lila." Lila's face paled. "Don't let her up," she whispered. "I won't," I said, but my hands were shaking. I pressed the intercom. "She doesn't want to see you, Mia. Leave." There was a pause, then a bitter laugh. "She's making a mistake and you know it. Tell her I'm not giving up." The intercom went silent, but the threat lingered. Lila sank onto the couch, her hands covering her face. "I'm so sorry, Alex," she said. "This is my fault." "No, it's not," I said, sitting beside her. "She's the one who can't let go. But we need to do something." We decided to file a restraining order. It wasn't an easy choice. Lila felt guilty, like she'd somehow caused Mia's behavior, but I convinced her it was necessary. The next day we went to the police station, filling out forms while a board officer asked questions. Lila's hand trembled as she signed, and I held her other hand, trying to be her anchor. "It feels wrong," she said as we left, "like I'm punishing her for loving me." "She's not loving you," I said, my voice firm. "She's trying to control you. Love doesn't stalk. It doesn't scare." Lila nodded, but I could see the weight of it all pressing on her. I wanted to fix it, to make Mia disappear, but all I could do was be there. So I was every step, every moment. The restraining order helped, but it didn't erase the tension. Lila was jumpy, always checking her phone, her surroundings. I tried to keep things light, planning dates to distract her. A museum visit, a rooftop picnic, but the shadow of Mia was always there. One night at an art show where my painting was displayed, everything changed. The gallery was packed, the air buzzing with chatter and wine glasses clinking. My piece, a vibrant abstract portrait of Lila, hung on the wall, and I was nervous, my first real showing. Lila stood beside me, her hand in mine, whispering encouragement. "You're a star," she said, kissing my cheek. "They love it." I grinned, but then I saw her, Mia, standing across the room, staring at us. My heart stopped. She wasn't supposed to be here. The restraining order forbade it. "Lila," I said, nodding toward Mia. Lila turned, her face draining of color. "She can't be here," she whispered. Before I could stop her, Lila walked toward Mia, her shoulders squared. I followed, my pulse racing. "What are you doing here?" Lila asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "I needed to see you," Mia said, her voice low, almost pleading. "You're making a mistake, Lila. She's not right for you." "That's not your call," Lila said, her voice rising. "You need to leave. Now." Mia stepped closer and I moved between them. "Back off," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "You're violating the restraining order. The police are already on their way." I'd lied about the police, but it worked. Mia's eyes flickered with panic, and she backed away, disappearing into the crowd. Lila was trembling, but she grabbed my hand, grounding herself. "I'm done running from her," she said, her voice fierce. "I choose you, Alex. I choose us." We left the gallery, the night air cold against our skin. Back at my apartment, we didn't talk about Mia. We didn't need to. Lila kissed me, and it felt like a promise, a vow to fight for what we had. That night, we made love for the first time, not out of desperation but out of certainty. It was slow, deliberate, our bodies saying what words couldn't. As we lay together, tangled in my sheets, I knew we'd crossed a threshold. We weren't just surviving Mia's shadow, we were building something stronger. The months that followed were a quiet kind of healing. Mia stopped contacting Lila after the gallery incident, and though the restraining order helped, it was Lila's resolve that made the difference. She was done letting her past define her, and I was learning to trust that she meant it when she said she chose me. We settled into a rhythm, our lives intertwining like brushstrokes on a canvas. Lila moved into my apartment, her books mixing with mine, her clothes tangled in my laundry. We fought sometimes about dishes, about my late nights in the studio, about her tendency to overthink, but we always found our way back to each other. One spring evening we sat on the fire escape where we'd first kissed, the city humming below us. Lila was reading a new poem, her voice soft and steady, and I was sketching her, capturing the way the sunset lit her hair. "Remember that night?" she asked, closing her notebook. "The party, the fire escape? How could I forget?" I said, smiling. "You turned my world upside down." She laughed, leaning against me. "You did the same to me. I was so lost before you, Alex. Scared to love again. But you made me brave." I set my sketchbook down, taking her hand. "You made me brave too. I was hiding even from myself. You showed me I didn't have to." We kissed, the city fading into the background, and I felt a certainty I'd never known before. This wasn't just a moment, it was a future. That summer, I got my first solo art show, and Lila's poetry was published in a prestigious journal. We celebrated at the same dive bar where we'd shared fries, toasting to our dreams and each other. Jamie was there, grinning like a proud parent, and the bar was packed with our friends, queer artists, writers, dreamers who'd become our chosen family. But the real victory wasn't the art or the poetry. It was us. We'd faced Mia's shadow, our own fears, and the weight of a world that didn't always understand love like ours. We'd chosen each other not just once but every day, through the mess and the beauty. One night as we lay in bed, Lila traced circles on my arm. "I want to build a life with you," she said, her voice quiet but certain. "Not just now but forever." My heart swelled. "Forever's a long time," I teased, but my voice cracked with emotion. "Good," she said, kissing me. "I'm counting on it." We didn't have all the answers. We were still young, still broke, still figuring out who we were. But we had each other, and that was enough. The party where we'd met had ended long ago, but what we'd found in its aftermath was just beginning. Our love wasn't a phase or a detour. It was a home built from courage, trust, and the kind of vulnerability that makes you stronger. And as I fell asleep with Lila in my arms, I knew that no matter what came next, we'd face it together.